So I just finished the sixth book in the Galactic Football League series by Scott Sglr, 2020 book, and I realized it's book six. There's no way I can really particularly talk about this without just massively spoiling the entire series. And to be honest, I would have to fill you in so much to get you up to book six. Why not just do a video that just sort of talks about the Galactic Football League series? So yes, written and also podcasted by Scott Sglr. It is a science fiction sports series set about 700 years in the future. There's been a lot of warfare, a lot of kind of interspecies. There's tons of different alien races cooperation. One of those races, kind of a very minor one, being humans, ruled by the Creterakian Empire, which is like a massive, like just by sheer force of numbers and just brutal force, they have been able to basically kind of conquer the majority of the races. There's some ones on the sidelines who basically they're species that can survive in such kind of radioactive and toxic things that they're outside, but for all purposes, the Creterakians are in control. And one of their tools for control is the Galactic Football League, where through sports, through kind of ritualized violence, I think as Scott Sglr has talked about, you can unify all these kind of very many diverse beings into one thing. We're all going to root for football games and stuff like that. And so the kind of all the species that are in here. This is the humans, the Sglorno, which are very kind of fast, kind of very thin little creatures, very hyper. The Key, who are just massive, kind of like Cthulhu-like kind of tentacle beasts, who are the defensive and offensive lines. You've got the Quith and heavy G humans, who are basically super augmented humans, are the linebackers. Now, first thing I should say going into this is I know virtually nothing about football. I know there's a quarterback. He throws stuff. There's big guys in front of him who block, and there's fast guys who run out and catch the ball. Like, that's the level of what I know about sports. One of the real keys to this is that Sglr is really good at taking, what is football today, and simplifying it and turning it into a really great kind of storytelling device, and these little bursts. It's action scenes on the field, and he's really good at describing that in a way. I think a lot of people watch sports movies who've got no intention of watching sports. Like I've watched Rocky, but I'm never going to be interested in football. I've watched, I don't know, Field of Dreams or all that for baseball. So I don't think I've actually watched particularly any football movies, but if they made this series into a movie, I would definitely watch it. So yes, this book starts in 2009 with the starter, following human being Quentin Barnes. Quentin Barnes is playing at kind of the third tier. There's three tiers of football, and the very lowest tier, just kind of your most backwater, kind of just barely above just you're playing in a lot, is the third tier, and this is where he is playing. He is a member of the purest nation on a mining colony that's called a Makovi, where he has grown up as an orphan. It's ruled by religious theocracy. It's very much kind of strict kind of morality stuff, really repressive regime. His parents somehow had to flee. The big distinguishing factor of the purest nation in this big empire, where they want everyone to get the Creterakians' political thing is everyone gets along, is that the purists are super xenophobic. They are super racist. They only believe in the pure race, the pure human beings. They have a whole bunch of, like Quentin talks about, all these nursery rhymes, which are basically all the weak points that you could punch these alien beings and incapacitate and kill them. It's that kind of, that level of hatred and fear in them. So he is the star quarterback for this purist nation football team, and he's the top of the heap there in third tier. But what happens is that an alien, Greedock the Splithead, who is he's the owner of the IGNF Krakens, who is, I believe, at this point in tier 2, scouts him, him and his coach. They scout Quentin Barnes and say, okay, we're going to get you because you're going to be super cheap. Nobody else wants you. There's definitely the feeling that there's no Purist Nation quarterback is ever going to be able to actually compete in the upper tiers because he'd have to cooperate with all these other beings, all those other races, and that's there's no way that's going to happen. But Greedock and his Horkar the Hook Chest, the coach, decide that they want to take a chance on him, and he is put forward, and he's really, they have a starter who is Don Pine, who is this blue skinned human being, augmented that way, or just genetically different that way, who is the starter, and he's there. They try and educate him. And I mean, this is the good thing with this book is that it starts off with Quentin Barnes in the very start of the series. He is racist. He is super ignorant, super arrogant at the same time, thinking he's the God gift to that. He's an angry guy. He did grow up an orphan. You learn as the series goes along that basically he had to, luckily he was somebody who grew up large. Like by the time he was 12 or 13, he was like over 6 foot and like super big, and he had to fight his way. He had to punch his way because he was all alone. And there's a lot of anger there, a lot of rage, a lot of just basically it's all about me. It's all about me. I have to protect only myself. He saw his brother executed for stealing bread. That level of hard scrabble. Luckily, someone at a mining thing saw him throwing a rock and went, "Hey, you could throw a football." And that's how he ended up in the football thing. But it's very much that kind of idea of, if it hadn't, he would have probably died in the mines, is the thing. So he gets pulled out of that. And this is a fish out of water story. This is a story of, will he learn to kind of overcome all his ignorance, all his racism, to be able to become a leader, to be able to unify this team, or at least become a functional football player. He's got the physical skills, but there's so much mental skills, so much study that he has to do. Not only it's at this level, you can't get by on, I can throw a ball really well. You have to know all the plays. You have to be able to actually know your players. You have to be able to motivate your players to actually care about you, to protect you, to catch your balls, all that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of the start of the series. And then there's the wider thing that Sglr sets up of this Cretarokian empire and how they are using this for control, and also various outside threats, inside threats, terrorist organizations. The whole idea of him being an orphan, it's like, well, maybe some family members are actually still alive. There is continual conflict between him and Greedock the Splithead, who is shown as like, he's a bad dude in himself. And it's in later books, actually, in the kind of the gangster, this book, not the final book, but the latest book, that you realize exactly how dangerous and bad a dude this is. So yeah, we go with the starter, where they move into tier 1, and Quentin does move up to being the starter of the INF Krakens. There's the All-Pro, where you get kind of the team stuff, but you also get someone's trying to assassinate him, it seems. You get the MVP, where they get captured by this other race, the Prowett race, this super dangerous race that's been known for like nuking planets and stuff like that, to basically take it over, because all that radiation doesn't bother them, so they can take over the planet, but they've killed millions and millions of people. Get to the Champion, where that's there's continually you get the sports stories throughout the thing. Sglr's got the really good thing of he'll have sports scores, but he'll also have, like, suddenly we'll cut to the greatest damn sports show on TV, and they'll be talking about kind of the overall kind of the league that way, and stuff like that. It's good. Like, fun ways to kind of have info dumps and get you more up to speed in the story. But also he has like his sister that he's discovered gets driven into the Portath Cloud, which is sort of like this Bermuda triangle in this galaxy, and they can't, it's like he's got to go in and rescue her, which also kind of brings up more of kind of the wider story, the outside of the stuff. And a lot of this is he becomes more and more prominent. This is a universe where the Sglorno worship football players and set up churches, and there is a church of Quentin Barnes, which Quentin, while he has no use for his own church, actually maybe perhaps because he has no use for the Purist Nation, as he gets more and more educated, he is deeply uncomfortable that he's been set up as this kind of deity by other races, and the Creterakian Empire is always there looking to see like, how big is your church? Because if it gets past a certain point, they take action to make sure it doesn't get any bigger. Action that would not work well for Quentin. And so then, we get to the gangster, where the relationship between Quentin Barnes and Greedock the Splithead really comes to the fore. And it's interesting. You go from the starter, the all-pro, the MVP, the champion, to the gangster. Which one of those doesn't belong? It's like, suddenly, all the other stories, they would have stuff happening off season, but then they would have the season and we'd have the game. This one is very much completely the off season. The last book, we had the final game, and then this is him dealing with, starting with like all the injuries that he sustained. Sglr is really good and thorough, almost in a George R.R. Martin manner of saying, like, if you take injuries, they have consequences, and they don't get just magically waved away. One of the cool things he does with this is a sports setting, and one of the rules is we can't use all of our super advanced technology to augment players. If you have augments, you immediately are flushed out and end up going to horrible prison. You can't use advanced technology to heal yourself. You can use like sort of what you get the sense is like rejuve tanks. It's like basically ways of helping your body do the healing, but you can't do stuff that's going to wave away stuff like horrible concussions, which Quentin has been sustaining all those concussions, and they've been leading up, or injury to various body parts. So after the game, after you're out of the league, you can use that stuff, but within this thing, there is no magic hand wavy science fiction. We're going to cure all your things. So there's real stakes there for every time Quentin gets injured. It's like, oh, will this be the career-ending injury? And I mean, not to, as the thing goes on, that becomes a higher and higher probability. So that's the thing he has to deal with. And yes, and the big thing in this is him and Greedock comes to a real head at the same time as there are even larger events going on that are pushing at Quentin, who has been so like I think as like a lot of professional athletes or anybody who's like at the apex of a field, he's been laser focused at this part of his profession, and he's like, I don't care about anything else. I'm not a politician. I'm not a soldier. I'm not freaking God. I'm not a god. I'm not a deity to be worshipped. I'm just a football player. And that gets more and more challenged as we go along. And indeed, this book brings more developments in there that really, really point to the fact that Quentin is going to have to expand. It's going to have to further develop, because that's one of the fun things about these books is he has a lot of limitations. He has a lot of anger issues. He has a lot of just kind of like, I'm just a player. Just give me the ball, coach. But he's also, it's been pushing at him to be he's a leader of men, well, no, not just men. That's very sexist of me. There's female Sglorno. He has a fellow player, Becca the Rekka, who comes up in this book, who he has a serious relationship with. So it's also cool that way, is that it's not football. It's like, oh, it's men, and there's very kind of a testosterone-y thing. There's the Tweedy brothers who are like, oh, super mega super. They're awesome, gigantic, comedic, quite deadly linebackers. But there's also there's acknowledgement of more than that. So yeah, it is a super fun series. Sgl has done all these as audiobooks. He's really good at coming up with all the voices for the various creatures, for the various characters. You can see there's a lot of love of sports in here, that even if I don't know the references, there's a Chick McGee, who's this news reporter who is always saying inappropriate stuff, which is rings true to my experiences in just Canadian hockey or something like that. There's some things that transfer over. I don't know much about hockey either, other than I'm Canadian, so I probably absorbed a hell of a lot more of that. But yeah, so yeah, that is the GFL series by Sctt Sglr. Especially kind of on like as an audiobook, I would totally recommend, trying this out, trying out like the starter. It's very, fun. It does get darker. I was wondering that the last one, the gangster, is starting to get veer more into his kind of darker kind of techno thriller other works, which I'm not as much a fan of. I'm definitely much more into this series, where I've got a real emotional investment with Quentin from book to book, which I guess is what I'm going for. But yeah. So I will leave it there. More videos later.